G'day legends, in this video we are going to be talking about Cocaine Conor again. Can you say that this early in a YouTube video? I don't know. We're going to find out. We are going to be talking about Conor McGregor again because it does seem like he has 100% checked out of the UFC. And the president of the bare knuckle fighting promotion, David Feldman, has done some interviews talking about how Conor McGregor will 100% fight for BKFC. So with that and what Conor McGregor has said about 2025, we're going to break down maybe what the next year is going to look like for whoever is still a Conor McGregor fan out there. Firstly, let's just get on board with this and take a quick look at what David Feldman said about Conor McGregor 100% promising to fight for the BKFC.
I mean, unless he's the best salesman in the world, because the talks that we've had, he's like, I'm fighting here. Like, I'm like, yeah, okay. He's like, I'm fighting here. I'm fighting here. And then I go, well, why wouldn't you fight here? Because you have equity in the company. And if you fight here, you probably make more money here than anywhere else in the world because of what it's going to do for the company. So
I love how, like, in that video, he talks about unless Conor McGregor is the best salesman in the world. I mean, he might be one of the best salesmen in the world. I'm not going to lie. Let's look at it like this. He's been able to sell us all a very mid whiskey, but put it on pretty much every shelf around the world. And not only that, he's been able to keep his professional fighting career alive. The bloke hasn't won a fight since 2016. If you're able to keep a professional fighting career alive for nearly a decade without winning a fight, you might be one of the best salesmen in the world. However, 2025 is going to be a very, very big year for Conor McGregor. And there is a couple of reasons why. Number one, it looks like that is the year or somewhere during that year, at least towards the end of it, that Conor McGregor's sunset clause on his UFC contract is going to be wrapping up. Now, Conor McGregor has got 2 more fights on that UFC contract. And the big question that seems to be is, does anybody care? No, the big question that seems to be is he ever going to fight in the UFC again? With 2 fights left on his contract, there is something very interesting going on from the UFC's end. Number one, how much are they paying him? They re-signed him when his star power couldn't have been higher. And for the UFC's strict business mind, he might not be worth what they're paying him to even put him up on a pay-per-view. He might not be able to generate that much money. So the UFC are in a sort of take it or leave it negotiation setting with Conor McGregor. Do they put him up for 2 more fights and risk losing the money, or do they just pay him out and let him go? Will Conor McGregor fight 2 more times in the UFC? Who knows? But then again, the UFC do not like to play out fighters' contracts unless they can re-sign them for further fights onwards. This is exactly what happened with Francis Ngannou and why it took so long to get Francis moving in the cage, because he didn't want to re-sign a contract. He chose to try and fight out his contract. Now, when a fighter wants to do that, what the UFC will generally do is put them in there for 2 more fights against super hard matchups to try and devalue them as much as they can on the open marketplace, so the UFC could still maybe win a bidding war if someone is a free agent. The big problem with Conor McGregor is they're going to be bidding against Conor McGregor himself. Like Dave Feldman said in that clip, Conor McGregor is part owner of the BKFC and he wants to fight in the BKFC. Being part owner of that means that Conor McGregor will be able to take in a bit of the equity, a bit of the profit, however well the company grows. Conor McGregor is going to own a part of that. So it just makes good business sense for Conor McGregor to fight in BKFC to raise its own stock value. So essentially, the UFC are now stuck with a fighter that they might be paying more than he is worth when it comes to pay-per-view points, and they need to get into a bidding war with him against himself. That's sort of a lose-lose for the UFC, which is why you can see that the UFC are probably icing out Conor McGregor. Who knows what happened with the pinky toe at UFC 303? If I would doubt the toe claims. I really would. I think there might have been a back and forth going on between the UFC, and they were using it as leverage to try and get him back into the cage, or maybe trying to get him to sign an extension. There are negotiations that were going on behind the scenes that we are 100% not privy to. The idea of Conor McGregor pulling out for a broken toe is a little bit sus to me. So, will we see Conor McGregor fight again in 2025? Whether or not it's in the UFC or not. Yeah, I do think we will. I think we will 100% see him fight in the BKFC at least. Maybe not the UFC, but I do believe he will fight there. Why is that? Because when you go and look at Conor McGregor's life, just watch it with some distance, because you might catch a high off that, just looking at Conor McGregor's life. But when you do, you see that his entire life has been built around trying to get back that success that he had back in, say, 2015, 2016. Especially if you go on Netflix and watch the Conor McGregor Forever documentary, all he wants is to be back in the cage performing, entertaining the fans. And he had that sort of trilogy moment with Dustin Poirier where things were going well for him until he got knocked out. Then he got back in the cage. He was revved up, ready to go, and then he snapped his bloody leg. Conor McGregor's life since 2015 has been on the rails, where all he wants to do is get back in the cage, but he has sort of become a victim of his own success. Because the more that the UFC pay him, the harder it is for them to find the right booking for him. So with the injuries, plus how hard it is for the UFC to book him because of his, I don't know, what would you call it, a return on investment ratio, all he has wanted to do is get back into the cage. And now he's gone ahead and bought equity in his own promotion where he does not have to get drug tested. And Conor McGregor bloody loves taking steroids, mate. And if he doesn't have to get drug tested as much, well, then you've got, I don't know, Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez 2 in a bare knuckle fight. Does that not sound kind of tasty and something we would all watch, especially if it was on a weekend where there wasn't any UFC on? Or how about this? Conor McGregor versus Masvidal, where Conor McGregor can be his juicy 170-pound self. That sounds pretty good too. Or how about this? The guy who has recently been robbed by the entire boxing community and is in court right now to try and get some money, Nathan Diaz. Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz 3 in a bare knuckle event. Not only is the bare knuckle fighting promotion there for Conor McGregor to raise his own funds, collect his own profit, but he has got far easier and more fun matchups that align with where Conor McGregor is in his life right now. I do think Conor McGregor just wants to get into a punch-up two or three times a year, pay himself a lot of money, and not worry about the competitive nature of it. I think he just misses getting into a scrap and getting paid good money for it and seeing if he can win, and not worrying about winning a UFC title and all of that stress. And then the rest of the year, he just wants to sit on his yacht and do as much cocaine as Anthony Montana at the end of Scarface.
Say hello to my little friend!
And BKFC can provide him that, as well as providing us with fun matchups. Look, Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira. Is that a particularly exciting matchup for anyone? Is anyone out there wondering how that fight is going to go? Or Conor McGregor versus Justin Gaethje? Does that really get the juices flowing that much? Or do you sort of just see Justin Gaethje beating the living piss out of Conor McGregor? However, those three matchups that we just talked about, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez, and Conor McGregor versus Jorge Masvidal, with a juiced up, roided up, veiny Conor McGregor, that does sort of sound fun. So with that lay of the land for Conor McGregor's 2025 landscape, is it really any surprise at all that it's currently September in 2025? He is clearly being iced out by the UFC. He has said consistently that he is ready to get back in there whenever the UFC would like to have him. And Dana White has consistently said, we'll see what happens. With him seemingly being iced, is anyone surprised at all that he is getting his hands into every single boxing event he can, playing that weird character that he has whenever he's out on the town, and just doing lines as far as the eye can see? McGregor is essentially unemployed at the moment. He is on hiatus. What else is he meant to do? I mean, you could try and be productive or start another business, but unfortunately, he's an athlete that has all the money in the world and no sport to compete in right now. I do sincerely hope that he can get back into a ring, at least a bare knuckle ring, as soon as possible, because he clearly is the kind of guy that needs to have that competitive activity. Otherwise, his life does tend to spiral. And being 36 years old and coughing up 8 balls when you wake up in the morning is not a healthy lifestyle for anybody. We will see a hard crash out if he keeps going down this path. So that's it. Let me know down there in the comments. What would you rather see? Conor McGregor in the UFC versus Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler? Or Conor McGregor, BKFC, juiced up, punching on with Nate Diaz one more time. What do you think would be more fun to watch on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday night? Put it down there in the comments. If this is your first time on the channel, g'day, welcome. Why don't you hit that subscribe button? I try and make an MMA video every single day. Plus, I go live about 3 times a week. If you're already on board with the channel, you know what to do. Hitting that like button helps it grow so much. And until then, you guys all have a great day, a great night, wherever you're from, and I'll see you all in the next video.